VIBErations podcast, part 40, Martin Lever, recorded on the 22nd of March 2022. Hi, I'm Gary Brightman, and this is my podcast called VIBErations. Established in 2018, Vibe is a book and music shop situated in Mui Wo on Lantau Island in Hong Kong. So, what's been happening at the shop recently? Put it simply, we've had a quiet month or so now. However, Hong Kong, as it always does, is weathering the storm, and that initial 50,000 cases of COVID per day is now reduced to around 3,000 cases. Today is Qingming Public Holiday, which is the remembrance of ancestors or grave sweeping festival, and of course, in a couple of weeks, we have Easter. This usually makes for a busier Mui Wo as extended families get together. Studio 114 is now up and running. This purpose-built sound studio in my home on Lantau Island is now ready for business. Many thanks to Steve Walsh and my wife Steph for helping to make the sound studio a reality. This part of the podcast is being recorded in here, and going forward it can be used for any type of voice recording. Maybe your podcast or audiobook. Producing audiobooks is a resource-intensive project, but going forward I will be happy to produce more as part of a widening Vibe service. On Saturday, the 30th of April, we plan to have Steve Bernstein back at the shop for a gig. Steve plays mandolin and vocals in the cover band Stax. The music is a mix of Americana blues, folk and rock from the Grateful Dead, Fish, Bob Dylan, the band and others. On Saturday the 21st of May is our 4th anniversary, and we're currently lining up some great musical talent to celebrate either virtually or in real life at Vibe. Additionally, we plan to have a reorganised Vibe shop and DJ recording decks installed for the 4th anniversary weekend. So, fingers crossed. And so to this week's interview with Lantau-based artist Martin Lever. Award-winning Hong Kong artist Martin Lever, Chinese name Li Hua, has lived, studied and worked in Hong Kong on and off for nearly 40 years now. One of the biggest inspirations in his life is the unique city he calls home. His contemporary artwork has been exhibited in a number of solo shows in Hong Kong, the UK and the Middle East. His work adorns the walls of private collectors, and commissioned pieces hang in corporate lobbies from Wheelock and Wharf to the McKinsey Corporation to Patton Boggs Law. His approach to painting is refreshingly simple. He closes his eyes, then paints what he sees. Using striking contrasts of colour and light-hearted observational touches, he creates powerful abstract and pop art impressionist images that celebrate the world around us through a new lens. Beyond art, his creative work has been recognised around the world with countless advertising industry awards. And his acclaimed series of children's books, The Bogey Bugs, is helping fuel young imaginations. His awards include Grand Prix golds, silvers and bronzes at a range of local, regional and international creativity festivals and shows, including Hong Kong Cannes Fan, Best in Show 2017, Cannes Festival of Creativity, New York Festivals, London International Awards, D&AD Awards. Welcome to Vibe, Martin.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me.
As we do, we'll start off with the 10 questions. What's your favourite book or author?
Favourite book? Yeah, I mean, sat here surrounded by books puts in context how difficult it is for me to actually name a favourite book or a favourite author. You know, I enjoy all sorts of types of books. I'm a big fan of history. I like reading historical books, historical novels, biographies, trashy airport novels sometimes. Well, I don't know if John Grisham falls into trashy airport novel, but I only ever seem to buy his books in an airport. Yeah. But I do enjoy his books.
Yeah.
It's funny, I normally have at least half a dozen books on the go at any one time.
Okay,
and I'll read in bed at night. And that can get very confusing sometimes because I kind of mix up the plots of my books and wonder where a character's gone.
That's brilliant.
So just to give you an insight, at the moment on my bedside table I've got a great biography of Churchill by Andrew Roberts, George Orwell's 1984, which I've not read since 1984, I don't think.
I haven't either.
Which I plucked out recently. Great story about the Jam, written by Bruce Foxton and Rick Buckler. because Paul Weller's a big sort of hero of mine, I guess.
And mine, yeah.
But not so much Buckler and Foxton, but
Yeah.
the Jam were great.
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
story of the Jam through their eyes is very one-sided.
Is it?
Not very complimentary to Paul Weller.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting.
It was his way or the highway,
It was
wasn't it?
his way or the highway, absolutely.
Yeah.
A really interesting sort of historical, anecdotal book called Destination Shanghai that I think
Paul French?
bought in this shop.
Yes, you did.
And that's just a wonderful collection of odd madcap stories from Shanghai between the wars, I think,
It
or even
is.
pre-war,
Yeah,
pre-both
absolutely.
wars. There's a writer called Carl Heisen. I don't know if you've heard of him. The one phrase that was attributed to him that kind of sums him up: he could choreograph Armageddon.
I like it.
And he's
That's cool.
an American writer, and most of his stories are set in Florida, and they are comedy stories. I think a couple of them have been turned into books, but things like Sick Puppy and Native Tongue, and they are very madcap sort of
Nice.
adventures. They're good fun books.
Yeah, that would appeal to me, I think, as
And
well.
I've also got one of my daughter's famous 5 books by the side of my bed as well,
Brilliant.
which I picked up before I had a go. I think it was 5 Go to Treasure Island, or which you know, I'd read in an evening, and that was a fun bit of escapism as well. But if you come back to your original question, you know, a book that I'm emotionally connected to, or that I've read more often than any other book, would probably have to be The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle.
Okay,
Which
yes.
is a very famous kids' book.
Yeah, very popular
I'm
in
sure
here,
most
actually.
people have heard of.
Yeah.
Visually stunning as well.
It is.
And just a simple little kids that I've obviously read to Remy when she was little numerous times. And obviously we've got to plug my own book written
I was going to
with
say,
Remy.
yeah. Well, I was going to say that is obvious now to me where you got the inspiration from.
Well, yes. I mean, it
for
was
the Bogies.
that's right, the Bogey Bug. So I think there's some in here. I think it might be the
There
only
is.
children's book you've never sold, actually.
It is as well, yeah. No, I've sold one, Martin.
So when Remy was 3, 4, we used to make up stories at bedtime.
Nice.
And we made up these characters called the Bogey Bugs together, and ended up shaping them into 5 characters who were sort of environmental crusaders here to save the world from a whole sort of litany of disasters. And I wrote 8 stories in 2 little box sets. So they, I'm quite fond of those as well.
Yeah, and I
naturally.
think they're very well. Yeah, absolutely, and so you should be. I think they're very well presented, and actually, I do mean to get round to reading them, and I will before.
So you haven't read them yet?
Well, you know, I could lie, couldn't I? All right, we'll move on to question 2. Favourite musical artist?
Yeah, music. Same thing as books, I guess. I've never really hero worshipped any one performer or band. Again, my taste in music are pretty eclectic. Being from Liverpool originally, you know, the Beatles have
resonance.
never far from my heart. I was into indie bands, you know, in the early mid '80s, I guess, from Joy Division, the Smiths, Echo and the Bunnymen, and the Jam.
Yes.
Getting into the world of clubbing and dance music in the late 80s, early 90s. A lot of that music I gravitate to. Northern Soul. A lot of the music I like, I guess, has been connected to a movement or a subculture in some way rather than just one band. There's one album that I've probably gone back to once a week for 40 years, which is the Specials' first album.
I knew you were going to say
and
that.
That band, I think, above all else, just I connect with on so many different levels.
Yes.
You know, from musically, that rebirth of ska with a sort of punk twist.
Yeah.
It was the first time I'd ever seen a band at the age of 10 or 11 that had black and white guys in the same band.
Brilliant.
I just felt that's how it should be.
Me too.
It really struck me as something different.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the clothes they wear, the Stay Pressed, the Fred Perry, as they say, a mod is for life, not just for Christmas, right?
I like it. That's good. Yeah. And if it ain't stiff, it ain't worth it. Right, let's move on. Do you have a preferred drink?
JD and Coke.
Do you have a life motto?
Life motto? I saw this question you'd asked in preparation for this, which I didn't give much thought to.
No one does, Martin. No
good.
one does. That's the respect I garner.
But there's a phrase that I came across, a Che Guevara phrase, Spanish, understandably, which is "La fiesta no es para los feos," and it means the party is not for the ugly ones. And it just struck a chord with me. And it was obviously a political statement. You know, the Communist Party is not for the ugly capitalists.
Right.
But I kind of found, particularly when I was working in advertising or socialising, that you could apply that statement to almost anything.
I like that.
And the ugly ones being the greedy, the arrogant, the ignorant, the egotistical, you know, the party being whatever you want to do in life. You know? So there it is, tattooed on my arm.
Oh wow.
So I guess that is my life motto, if you like.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Right, I'm going to steal that as soon as you leave Hong
You'll
Kong.
have to learn it.
Do you have a favourite Hong Kong walk?
Oh God, there's
Some people say from here to the China Bear, but you know, I think that's a. But I know you live in Poyo.
That wouldn't be one of them. Favourite Hong Kong walk? I mean, obviously, there's hiking's so popular here, isn't it? People, so many great trails, and we're so lucky here to be, living in an urban jungle. This is an incredible city.
Look, if you don't walk, Martin, just say.
10 minutes. Well, I tend to ride my bike more than walk. Walking for me, I think I probably enjoy urban walking more than country walking, although I like walking in the countryside too. But if I had a favourite walk, and I did it, time has become such a bit of a warp, hasn't it, in the last couple of years?
It really has.
It must be over a year ago. I dropped my motorbike off in Prince Edward in Mongkok.
Okay.
And then I'd gone down to the gym in Chimpsey in Canton Road.
Right.
And then walked from Canton Road back to Prince Edward.
Yes.
All the way up Nathan Road,
Yeah.
Jordan, Austin, and then onto
Boundary
Temple Street.
Road,
Yeah, all Shanghai Street, Temple Street.
Yeah.
All the way along Temple Street and Fa Yuen Street. And it was quite early in the morning, so it was relatively quiet. And just the diversity of urban stuff,
yes,
for want of a better word,
I
I just find fascinating every single time. Hong Kong back streets for me are unparalleled.
Me too. I think I fell in love with that side of Hong Kong first, actually. Most people would come here and fall in love with, I don't know, the skyline or the Victoria Harbour or, Ocean Park. But that was that urbanness of Sham Shui Po and Mongkok and Temple Street, the markets.
I mean, it's just so colourful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's
a hive of industry.
It's the old school land use that you probably used to get in the Western world, a few centuries ago, where you walk down a street and you've got a cobbler, you've got somebody bashing out some metal ware, you've got somebody carving something, you've got a boutique, you've got a little backstreet dentist, which is just
hairdressers in a little sort of line in an alleyway,
all within 100 yards of each other, and obviously all very old school and those are the kind of scenes that are fast disappearing in Hong Kong, aren't they?
They
places
sadly
get
are
more and more gentrified.
Yeah, but that really is a microcosm of Hong Kong life, isn't it? Real life.
I mean, I remember, when we first got here in 1979, and we were staying in the Lee Gardens Hotel, which is now the Lee Gardens Manulife building in Causeway Bay. And the whole of Causeway Bay was just like that. It was little stationery shops and everything was family owned.
Yeah.
And now it's all gone. It's all just big faceless boutiques. And at some point it'll all disappear, which will be a real tragedy.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite Hong Kong restaurant?
It'll be cheap, for sure, because I like value for money. My books are value for money.
Yeah, is that a northern thing? Is it?
Yeah, I'm just inherently miserable.
Morrissey.
There's oh my God, what's it called? An old school Shanghainese family-run restaurant, but the cuisine is not Shanghainese, and it is off Heisen Avenue in Causeway Bay.
Okay.
And it's been in Hong Kong since the 40s.
Wow.
And it's been in that location since the 60s, I think.
Right.
And it's just it's the old school booths.
Yeah.
And the menu is some Chinese flavoured Western lamb chops and things like that, snails, but also loads of like ho fun noodles with beef and black pepper and lots of old school stuff. Yeah. And it's cheap as chips, and I love it. I love the atmosphere. It's got loads of old photographs in there. Yeah. And I must come back to you with a little what do they call it? A post dated comment of what the actual restaurant is called. Yeah, well, we can find it out. Yeah, but also outdoor dining, the sort of cha tangs. Chung chow, bit of seafood on the front. I mean, I'd much rather have that kind of experience than your sort of more upmarket restaurants. Not because I don't like smart restaurants, but I just feel a lot of them are lacking in any character. And, I agree. And quite often just horribly overpriced for what you get. Faced with a python whilst walking up to the peak, what would you do? Retreat. Yes. At pace. That means you're normal. You've passed the normal test. Question 8 is, what was the best advice you were ever given? I think my mum, bless her, who's no longer with us. I was very lucky. Mum and Dad taught me so many things in subtle ways that probably didn't realise were lessons at the time. But 2 things that they gave me. One was moving to Hong Kong in the first place. And your blinkers come off when you leave wherever you're from originally, especially moving to a city like Hong Kong. And being able to go into the ESF school system. I think when I was at Island School, there were 37 different nationalities. Wow. And every colour, creed, race, religion under the sun. Unbelievable. And none of it was ever an issue. So that gift of diversity. Yes. It's not advice as such, but that to me, I think has made me who I am, and is something I've treasured. Yes. In terms of verbal advice, I think it's probably as simple as Mum drumming into me to always say please and thank you when I went anywhere. And they did, didn't they, that generation? They did indeed, and I see kids today, and adults today not saying please or thank you when they're in a restaurant or when somebody brings them something, and it winds me up. I just think it's unnecessary. Yeah, I agree. So, finish this sentence. I live in Hong Kong because... I live in Hong Kong because I love it. Yeah. I first came to Hong Kong, it was nothing to do with me. Mum and Dad moved here in January 79. So Dad was a surveyor, he got a job, he was working in Ellesmere Port on the Wirral in Liverpool, and I think they were itching for an adventure of some kind. And came across an advert to work for the Hong Kong government I think he was in the building housing department, not originally, but ended up in the housing authority. So I came at the age of 9 with them, so I didn't have any choice really. Brilliant. And I think I hated it to begin with. Really? Yeah. And I'll tell you why. So we were living, as I mentioned, in Causeway Bay in a hotel before we got our apartment. And if you imagine, the only smell I'd ever been aware of outside the house was the smell of cut grass. Yeah. The grass verges, the garden, it was just it was flowers and grass. That was probably it. And the odd bit of petrol as a car. Yes, a bit of tarmac maybe. And then suddenly to be in the middle of Causeway Bay and the sensory overload. Yeah. And I just, I think, was just blown away. And was like, it was so alien. And then until, obviously, like all kids, you've left all your friends, and until you make new friends, everything seems rubbish, and then suddenly you've got new mates and it's all forgotten. So that's what brought me here for the first time. Wow. And then Mum and Dad, so they came for 2.5 years on contract terms. Yes. And then, as Dad used to say, it takes 2 years to really set up, and then you're at the end of a contract. So he was offered another one, and then that turned into them being here for nearly 20 years. Brilliant. And then so I've been here now on and off. I did live away, university and whatnot,
Yeah.
But on and off, I've been here for 43 years now. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So it's very much home.
Fantastic. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm kind of Chinese on the inside, Guilo on the outside.
Yeah, yeah. That's not a banana then, is it?
No,
that's the opposite to
that?
banana.
That's what's that? That's a white-skinned banana.
White-skinned banana, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, probably, something like that. But I think how brilliant, how fantastic. Great to live your life here, I think.
But it's funny, isn't it? You know, we obviously, yourself and we both know lots of people who've been here for all sorts of different lengths of time. But Hong Kong seems to grab people instantly.
Oh, yeah.
Or they just don't like it at all.
Yeah.
Right? It's
It ain't going to work.
Marmite,
It is Marmite. Yeah. So you went through the system. Did you learn Cantonese or?
Yeah, we did do. So Sik Gong Siu Siu Guangdonghua.
Right.
Tong Mei Ying Man.
Yeah, I don't mind if you do.
Yeah, which means I speak a little bit Chinese and English.
Nice. Yeah.
I understand more than I can actually speak. I found it. I studied it for a year at school. That was compulsory. Yeah. Which didn't go very deep. But then I did later when I was working. I did take some Cantonese lessons. But the English are very lazy.
We are
at learning languages because everywhere you go, people speak English. So it's not 100% our fault.
No, exactly. It's genetic. I think
it's genetic. Yeah. And B, I just didn't have a particular penchant for learning languages, and I found it very difficult to differentiate all the different tones.
Yes.
So I gave up. But I understand a conversation or get the gist of it.
That's good.
But can't actually join in more than in a pigeon kind of way.
Yeah. And so then you sort of got to the age of 16, 18. Then you went to university in the UK.
18, went to university back in UK. Didn't have. My daughter's at uni now, and you look at some of the sort of careers advice and guidance they get when they're doing their O levels and IB. I wasn't aware of any of that. Maybe I spent too much time playing football and cricket and messing around.
Good lad.
I never went in the careers office. I didn't even know there was one.
It wasn't a thing when I was growing up.
So I went to study history at university because I liked history. Didn't think about the vocational or what comes after university, and it didn't qualify me to do anything other than teach history, and I didn't want to be a teacher. Yeah. And then fell into advertising and as a junior writer in UK. So I went to university in UK, back to Liverpool, worked in for a company that owned a whole load of nightclubs, and actually first started working in the clubs, became licensee of a venue called Nation in Liverpool, which is where a big dance night called Cream started.
Okay, yeah.
So that was a great 3 or 4 years in Clubland.
Yeah, I bet.
Bit dangerous.
Yes, very dangerous.
In many respects.
Probably in all respects, actually,
And then and in doing that, I'd done a lot of sort of promotional work and marketing for the clubs. Yeah. So then I decided to come back to Hong Kong in '94, I think. Right. And got a job in a real advertising agency. So I used, I guess, a bit of that experience. So I kind of fell into advertising.
Okay. Yeah, so it just shows you, doesn't it, the pull of Hong Kong. Then you were educated here, you then flipped back into the UK, and you could have quite easily stayed in the UK then after that and lived your life.
Could have stayed.
Yeah, but you were I'm getting back there at some point.
It's funny, when you mention that, I look at a lot of my contemporaries at Ireland School here, and a huge percentage of them. Yeah. Ended up back here as well, and I think when it's in your blood, you don't get rid of it. Right? And they'd all taken different paths. Not all of them came back, but quite a dramatic percentage came back to Hong Kong, either for a short period of time or still here. So I guess it's a tough town to get out of your system. Yeah, and why would you want to?
So that brings us to the last question, I think. On this section, which is, what's your favourite area of Hong Kong?
Favourite area? I think you'd have to go back to my answer about favourite book and favourite artist. Really, it's very difficult to pinpoint because there are so many different experiences to be had within 20 square miles.
Yes, there is, isn't there?
We were talking about the back streets and be that the steep streets around Siang Poon, First Street, Second Street, and,
Yes.
all the interest that comes
yeah.
with that. Some of the countryside walks. I tell you, one place we used to go a lot of a weekend was the drive out to Sheko. When we had an old Peugeot 306, I think, where the top came down.
Nice.
And my daughter was young. We'd have one of a number of tracks on the stereo and drive out to Sheko on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Early, and it was just one of those spectacular drives you can imagine. And then have some seafood in one of the little restaurants on the roundabout there.
Yeah.
Lantau, I would say, because we're sadly going to be leaving Hong Kong soon, and we've been saying in some ways, of course, we'll miss Hong Kong, but we might even miss Lantau more than we miss Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So moving out to Lantau 7 years ago, I think has been one of the best moves we've ever made. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it?
So close to town. That's no hardship. A lovely community. First time we've ever really had neighbours in all my years of Hong Kong. And visually, it's paradise. You think of the beaches and the hills, and it's a fantastic place, Lantau. So I don't know if I've got a favourite area of Hong Kong. It's always changing so much as well. I mean, Andy Tate,
yes,
good mate of mine, we went out for a bike ride a couple of weeks ago and went through the Chun Mun Tunnel, a new tunnel, and out to Sekong, the old army base in Sekong, the Kam Tin walled village, and then over the top to the old Shingmun redoubt, by the reservoir where some of the old military fortifications were, and then over back to Sai Kung. And in doing that, it takes me back to the early 80s when there was nothing there. It was all market gardens.
Yeah.
Hong Kong is constantly changing. So my favourite place might not even exist anymore. It's not just a favourite geography. It might be a favourite point in time.
Exactly. It could well be a block of flats now.
Exactly.
Yeah, like you said earlier, 20 square miles, but in fact, you can still find places that will surprise you. Even, I bet you can, after 40 years in Hong Kong.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Some things are gone, some things are new that come. It's. I think that's one of the only constants in Hong Kong, isn't it? How dramatically it constantly changes. There was a place. So when Dad was involved in cricket here, as I was as well, and he used to play for a team called Little Saiwan, who were set up by the. There used to be a China listening station, part of GCHQ, that was out in Saiwan Ho, beyond Chai Wan, and they had aerial house there, so it was semi-military, and they had playing fields. And Little Saiwan, the original team, were some of the guys who worked there. Yeah, sort of a few Aussies and Kiwis and Brits and whatnot, some Indians, and he used to play for them, and their ground was fantastic. It was out, aerial house was the old colonial sort of building. There was a swimming pool, so when I was 12, 13, I'd go along when Dad was playing, and get our dinghy out and row out into the bay while they were playing cricket. And I think now there's about 250,000 people live on that cricket pitch in about 20 massive high-rise.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to think about, isn't it? You find yourself back in Hong Kong. It's around, 1998? You've sort of graduated, you've done some bit of clubbing stuff, you've done your marketing career, and you're now doing an advertising job in...
So 94 came back after 7 years away, uni and whatnot, and I guess started working in earnest in advertising then, and worked for companies like McCann and TBWA. I enjoyed that, and I did that for over 20 years, and that took us to the Middle East for 6.5 years to set up an agency in Abu Dhabi, which I'd heard of but couldn't have told you where it was at the time, which is the capital of the UAE. And that was an interesting experience, which put Hong Kong into context for us, and it was good to just spend a bit of time away again, and then we came back after that. So I moved to Hong Kong 3 times.
For a third time. You got it bad, haven't you?
I have, yes. But so during the advertising, obviously a creative industry, creative career, Pretty stressful, pretty cutthroat. Variety of different clients, so you never really own an idea. It's always got the arms and legs pulled off it, etc. And I guess as a way of therapy, I had been threatening to do some painting, and it was actually when my mum passed away. My wife had bought me an easel for my birthday in '99. And my mum had passed away a week earlier, and the two things sort of coincided, and I ended up just throwing throwing paint on canvas.
Nice.
And I guess it was in some way a bit of therapy at the time.
Certainly, I think.
And spent a lot of time just messing around until I sort of found a bit of a style and a subject, and then that kind of, I guess, was the catalyst to what is now my full-time career, which is painting.
Yes. So you kind of sort of stumbled in it. I mean, had you had any formal training before then?
No, I'd done A-level art. That was as far as it went. You know, in hindsight, if I had my time again, I would have paid a bit more attention to where I was going with my education and chosen to study tertiary level, some creative, be that design or architecture or something, because obviously I feel that I'm a creative individual, but the path has not been particularly linear to get to where I am now, so to speak.
So you start painting, and then at what point do you think, actually there's a career in this, or maybe I could sell these things, or do you think that, or do people tell you, actually that's not bad, Martin, you know, why don't you try and sell it?
I don't think I ever undertook to start painting to make money, and I think that's the same with most creative pursuits. You do it because it's what you are. You do it because you have a passion for it.
Yes.
If you're fortunate enough to
the money is
turn that into money at some point, then you're in a very, very, very small and very fortunate percentage. So I do it because I love it. I guess in putting together my first sort of collection for my first show, which was back in 2003 or 4, I obviously stopped and went, well, there's got to be a theme to this. There's got to be something that people may find appealing or attractive. It's not all about me. And I guess that was my advertising influence coming in to make this sellable.
There's a point to this.
So that was a collection called Street, and it was all sorts of working class heroes. It was the tram driver, the trolley man, the dim sum trolley ladies. So all
that
these
sounds appealing.
The bamboo scaffolder. All very sort of abstract, sort of two-dimensional portraits. And that was very popular. And obviously those characters resonated with people. It was all very bright and colourful in a pop art kind of style.
It would resonate with me.
And I guess that was my starting point, where I went, well, you know, Hong Kong is my muse. You know, how can I start to celebrate Hong Kong in a way that people haven't seen before? So that's all I've been trying to do for the last 20 odd years.
Your medium, it's wholly oils, is it? Or
no,
acrylics?
It's mainly painting. I'd love to get into sculpture and all sorts of different mediums perhaps one day, but I paint, and I tend to use a variety of different mediums, but mainly acrylic paints. I do use oil. Oil is tricky in Hong Kong because it takes a lot longer to dry.
Humidity and all that.
Particularly for 8 months of the year, humidity. So I don't do thick oil paintings that would take months and months to dry, but I use a bit of oil in my work, and a lot of different sort of mediums as well, like you can get different gels, different textured mediums that you basically apply to the canvas with a knife, and I guess in playing around I developed a style that I guess has become a bit of a signature, which is apply a pumice gel medium, and then I will etch in my sort of illustration, if you like, with a chopstick. So it's just the right thickness. And then those lines it then dries like concrete. So you've kind of got your base layer, and then I'll build up layers of paint on top of that. Which I don't use that technique for all of my work, but that's kind of become a signature sort of technique through a lot of what I've done, which just felt different, looked different, and people seem to have resonated with it. Yeah.
So, and I've, sort of reading your bio, you've done quite a few exhibitions over the last 10, 15 years, I suppose, dotted around Hong Kong.
Yes, I think there's been, and the Middle East as well. There's probably been about 4 or 5, 6 solo shows.
Yeah.
Which obviously take a lot of work in terms of the collection itself, and then the organising, the marketing, etc. And in between those, I've exhibited quite a few times at group shows like the Affordable Art Fair, the Asia Contemporary Art Show. And various other group exhibitions, which has been, for the last 2 years, as it's what's another of the things that's been so sad, just not had the opportunity to show my work along with so many other artists here.
And it's not the sort of thing that translates necessarily well to internet and screen based
event organisers, event owners. They've tried, to bring the experience online and have online sales, and I think there's a lot of products in the world that you can buy happily off Amazon without having seen it or touched it or felt it. But when it comes to art, I don't think I would buy a piece of artwork without seeing it
on the scene,
unless it was a very famous piece of art that was purely an investment. But I'm kind of not in that bracket anyway, so I don't need to worry about that.
No, exactly. And it seems to me that you generally go sort of into themes. You'll sort of come up with some ideas, you'll do a series of paintings based on that, and then you'll push those out there. Is that the sort of thinking behind what you do? Or?
Yes, very much so. So again, I guess certainly no innovation to develop a themed collection of paintings.
No.
But I guess if you add that to the professional world I'd sort of been part of for 20 odd years in advertising as well, and you think about a campaign, you think about a core idea, and what I've tried very hard with my collections is to actually have some kind of core thought behind it, as well as the visual aesthetic that perhaps can connect with people on more than one level. So for example, the a collection that is still going, I've done a lot of commissions in this theme, is called Above Below, and Above Below is basically a series of groundscapes. So when you look down from the 20th floor of a block of flats in Hong Kong, Hong Kong takes on a very different graphic sort of visual identity. So this collection, the idea came to me long before drones existed. And I started painting key sort of locations in Hong Kong that meant something to me, but in a very abstract way. So first and foremost, when you see the work, it's colourful, it's abstract, but then when you realise actually what it is well, it connects with people on another level. And I think that kind of sort of dual aspect, if you like, is the reason why a lot of people have gone, oh, well, I used to live here, or this was my favourite place. Could you do one for me? So it's been a very commissionable idea. Sense.
And in doing that, I mean, I guess you're having to work from photographs, are you?
You just use the original starting point was just from memory, and depending on how high above the ground I am in my sort of context. So I did Repulse Bay, and it was basically just a collection of towels. So it could have been any beach in the world, but for me it was Repulse Bay. You wouldn't know them as towels until you realised they were towels. So, but for the commissions, obviously. So I've recently done one of the whole sort of Western Prior, Kennedy Town, where there's the park and the new swimming pool and the cranes, the loading docks. So that obviously needs quite a high vantage point to be able to see that whole locale. And I will start with sort of Google Earth, see what the key sort of land uses are, and then I will obviously, it's not a map I'm painting, I will then try and give it a more of an artistic interpretation to give it a bit more balance and a bit more contrast. So that's the process.
I quite liked, I think I told you, the series that you did recently of the Chinese women.
The Sisterhood of Silk.
That's right. The
Sisterhood of Silk.
I like those.
I'd started with portraits all those years ago, very abstract sort of street character portraits, and I guess I wanted to do something, and I think I was kind of inspired by what my daughter was doing with some of her costume design courses. And I wanted to do some collage, and I hit on this idea of girls in Chung Sams, but very much pop art. So the hairstyles are very contemporary.
Yes.
But the actual dresses they're wearing are collage silk brocade from Shanghai Po. So I guess it was a marriage of all sorts of influences. Walking the back streets, some of the kind of businesses you'd find in those back streets. How can that go into your art? So it became a
bit of Wong Kar Wai, maybe even. With the Chung Sams in the
some of this. What was his movie?
In the Mood for Love.
Yeah.
And I think that the even more later one after that was the superheroes having their lunch.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
It's good. It works.
Super Noodles.
Super Noodles.
Batman, Iron Man, and who was the other one? Spider-Man. Eating noodles. Because I guess I don't even think
more pop art really.
Some of the. Can I say crap?
Yes, you can say crap.
Some of the crap we've all had to deal with over the last 2 years. And you think, okay, if a superhero came in, could he actually or she actually solve the problem? Or would she or he just get
down with the
stuck
rest of us?
into a bowl of noodles? That theme, I think, it's amazing how, obviously popular because of the superhero angle and the sort of very quirky nature of a superhero.
You've got the mums and the kids in there now.
That's been very popular, and I can see myself applying that to a whole series of characters. From history or whatever. It doesn't have to be superheroes. There's something very graphic about the construct of the silhouette. The hand holding the bowl, the bowl being iconically Hong Kong. They're fun, aren't they? They're fun.
I mean, overall, how would you say Martin Lever's persona is in your art in terms of the mood? Would you say your art is up? Is it down? Is it depending on your own personal state of mind at the time?
I Hitchcock had a great expression, which was surprise with the obvious. That he applied to a lot of his movie making, and I like that. I think the best ideas in life are simple, with a twist.
And
that's kind of what I tried to do. Look at the world around us, the things we all know so well, but try and express them in a way that we've not thought or seen before. And I guess invariably that ends up bringing a little bit of humour into play. So whether it's just playful or colourful or there's a humorous twist, my art influences are pretty varied as well. But pop art, Picasso, I like. I love illustrative art. I like Lichtenstein.
The pop art stuff, I love it.
So I mean, there's probably different moods within what I do. The moodiest work I've ever done was probably, you mentioned it earlier, before we started talking, was the Room 202 project.
Room 202,
So that came about a year and a half ago when my wife and I, Max, when we returned from UK to set our daughter up at uni, and suddenly found ourselves having to go into hotel quarantine for the first time. So we just brought that in. And the injustice I felt at not being able to go home really started to eat me up. At my own expense as well.
I can tell. We can all tell.
And fortunately, I hit on a thought, and I guess can I kind of channel my frustration into something positive? And the fact that I couldn't go home kind of put into context, well, it could be worse. At least I've got a home to go to. And I thought, hang on, there could be a bit of a charity project here. And I teamed up with Hong Kong Impact HK, who's a homeless charity. And I had this idea to document my 14-day stay by painting the same view outside my window twice a day. 28 times, and used a variety of different styles, but tending to use the materials of chalk, ink paint, small tubes of acrylic, whatever I had with me. And if you look at that collection, and then we sold prints, and the funds went to the charity. So that kind of kept me. That project kept me sane and kept me out of my wife's hair. And kept her sane. But if you look at that work, you can almost see the good days and the bad days
you can.
in the art itself.
Yeah, you really can. Yeah, and I think that in itself is attractive to certain people. I would be drawn to the good days. Perhaps I'm a positive person. The greens and the blues and stuff. The other thing that struck me while you were doing it, I was thinking, thank God he was, because you had that great view, that vista out of your window, which was
just
effectively
greenery,
Hong Kong,
it was a Hong Kong hillside. It was very therapeutic.
Whereas if you were overlooking a Kazi block, would have been some different art coming out of you, perhaps.
It would have been very different. It would have been very different. I
think very fortunate.
Well, Max, my wife had really fought hard for us to get a green view, and I think it was very important to just have nature and movement, wind blowing and everything else. And rather be staring at that than the other side of the hotel, which, as you say, we unless we were on the top floor, I think all we would have looked at is a block of windows,
another block,
which would have been A, less inspiring from an art perspective, and B, pretty depressing.
Exactly, for all of us.
yeah.
All right, so we're coming up to your final show. Well, let's not say it's your final show in Hong Kong.
It won't be my
final
show. It won't be. I really hope it won't be, but it will be my farewell show.
Yeah.
So to qualify that, we have decided to pull up stumps after 43 years on and off. I think we were probably always going to leave at some point in the future, but what has happened over the last 2 years with COVID has messed a lot of people's lives up, and particularly in Hong Kong with what we've all had to deal with. And I'm sure Hong Kong will bounce back in many ways, but for us, just having not seen my daughter for 16, 17 months now. Our life's just become unworkable. So it's kind of accelerated a decision to leave. But the plan is to come back and exhibit in the future at various group shows, etc. But yes, I'm planning to have a farewell retrospective, really. So it's all of my work, all the collections we've touched on, and that you'd see on my website.
Good.
It's work from a lot of those collections all in one place. And that will be, well, it was going to be March, but I postponed it because our fearless leader said we'd all have universal testing in March. So I thought, well, that's not a good idea. So I put it back to April. Who knows what will happen in April.
What nice surprises we've got left for us then.
But the dates are, if I can give it a plug, it's going to be in a retail space, ground floor, a space called Home Kong, which I think is a nice little touch. It's a shop space called Home Kong, and that is 90 to 92 Hollywood Road.
Okay.
And the dates are from the 8th to the 14th of April. So it'll be open as a retail space. There won't be a launch event because we can't because of social distancing, etc. So it'll just be come along any one of those 7 days, hopefully, and you'll see a good collection of Hong Kong inspired work from the last 20 plus years.
Wow. Have you got a decent enough space there to do that, do you think?
It's what they call a pop-up space, but it's a nice little box with very high ceilings, so I will curate it as best I can to get as much stuff in there as possible without it feeling too overwhelming. That's the plan anyway.
And people can go there during that week. They can buy the paintings.
All the work will be for sale.
All the work will be for sale. Yeah. Okay. And then beyond that, is there a catalogue of work behind that if things go well that people can draw on?
Well,
people be looking at your website?
I think my website is kind of the engine room of what I do when I'm not exhibiting. That's where I'd always send people to. They can connect with me via my website. They can see all the different collections I created over the years. A lot of the work on there has been sold and doesn't exist, or I don't own anymore. A lot of it is still available. So the website is fairly simple, artbymartinlever.com. And I will probably next week start promoting the details of the upcoming show in April. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, and after this podcast, we'll put your website on the YouTube links and everything.
That's very kind.
I for one will definitely be down there, looking for anything under 2,000. I'll come back with a little postage stamp.
Well, there's going to be a blanket discount for anyone from Lantau that comes along. You can guarantee that.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Actually, I think. To be able to see an artist's body of work, as you say, a cross-section of your work from the last, 20 years?
Well, yeah, I think that the earliest pieces would have been done over 20 years ago, one or two of them. So it's quite a retrospective. I'm calling the show 22 million minutes, because that's how long I've been in Hong Kong. So unless I've done my sums horribly wrong, and I'm not great at maths.
Just lie about it. Doesn't matter, is it? 22 million minutes. So it sounds brilliant. I love that.
79 to 2022. Is that where we are?
22.
Yeah. So that's roughly 22 million
excellent.
minutes.
Okay. What a great idea. Brilliant. All right. So all that remains for me to say is, Martin Lever, thanks very much for coming today.
Gary, it's been my honour and my privilege. Thank you, sir.
You can listen to all our Vibrations podcasts published on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Amazon Music, TuneIn and Alexa, Stitcher, Listen Notes, Player FM, SoundCloud, and I don't think there's any others. Or you can watch on our YouTube channel under Live at VibeHK, or follow the links from my website at vibehk.com. The opening and closing music from Celestial is called Green Island Dub and is on the Retrospect vinyl album On Sale at Vibe. And finally, a reminder that Vibe is open 7 days a week every day of the year from 12 noon until 6:30 p.m. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for listening to the 40th Vibe Book and Music Shop podcast called VIBErations. I'm Gary Brightman. You get my vibe?
Can you imagine what this old island must have looked like to those Dutch sailors when they first saw it? Fresh green. Like a dream of a new world.
They must have held their breath. Afraid it would disappear before they could touch it.